Hi, everyone. I'm Jody Hardy. I'm the Director of Physician and Patient Relations with Austin Emergency Center. We have 4 ER sites here in the Austin area and 1 urgent care. So across all 5 of those sites, we have about 125 providers that we have to credential and maintain. And I've been doing credentialing at this level for about 10 years.
Hi, my name is Shelley Crabtree. I'm the Medical Staff Services Coordinator for Texan Eye, and they're a multi-specialty ophthalmology clinic, including retina and glaucoma and cornea and plastic surgery. We have about 19 providers currently, 4 main locations and 4 satellite offices, and I've been doing this for about 2 years.
My name is Terry Lynn Davis. I am the Credentialing Director at First Assistant Credentialing. I've been in the credentialing business for about 17 years. We service multiple clients in multiple states, several hundred providers, different specialties, and that's what we do.
Hi, my name is Christy Rogers. I am a credentialing coordinator with First Assistant Credentialing. I have been credentialing for almost 18 years. I'm a certified CPCS, and I deal with 5 different clients and with a total of about 1,500 providers with all of those clients on a daily basis.
All right, as we say here in Texas, let's get this roundtable started. First topic, absolute musts. There are things in the credentialing world that you simply have to do or be willing to do to be successful. I'd like to hear from all of our panelists on this. Terry Lynn, what's the most important thing to you?
Being prepared for deadlines and knowing when your committee is going to meet. Are they going to meet on a quarterly basis? Are they going to meet bi-monthly? You know, when are they going to meet so that you can make sure that those next re-credentialing files are due or are ready on time, that you send them out the packet on time, that you collect the information on time, and that you don't hit any expiration dates. We've run into that with signatures where we have obtained a signature and then maybe a committee got moved and the signatures expired before that committee meeting, so we're rushing to get those again. And the same thing with verifications. You don't want to cut yourself short on verifications, but you also don't want to verify something too early and then something come up in the interim. So those are things that we try to prepare for.
I agree with that. I think that you have to have your organization system that you set up be prepared for any kind of little glitches that happen, because they will, because a lot of this is beyond our control.
Another thing that you have to think about is when you're planning ahead is you're always going to have those providers that respond at the last minute. So you're always going to have those doctors that you're trying to credential as quickly as possible and get them taken care of, sometimes in a matter of about 2-3 weeks before your meeting takes place. So what you want to do is have enough time to get as many of your providers processed before your meetings happen, so that when you do have those Johnny-come-lately providers, you're not scrambling and in a panic trying to get them processed, that you still have time to do them and not be trying to continue to get the rest of the providers. You have allowed yourself enough time for those providers that sometimes put you in a bind.
What's really interesting about this roundtable is that you have two credentialing companies, and then 1 facility, and then a practice location, which is me. So the girls talking about trying to get those providers the information in my clinic, they have to come through me. So I'm the one who is sitting on the doctor's desk getting that signature or tracking them down, trying to get the information from them. Now, we do all the re-credentialing for them for all of their licensing and stuff like that, so we don't have to worry about that portion. That's taken care of. I have that sewn up really good. So that's not a problem. The issue is just getting signatures, things like that. So it's really interesting to see the different sides of the two, because there is two different equations when you're talking about credentialing. It's the provider side, which is pretty much what I am, and then the credentialing side for the facilities or hospitals or clinics, things like that. So thinking long term on my side of it, there isn't a due date for a recredentialing for insurance, licensing, hospital reappointments. I have that stuff in my Monday.com, and I have it down to a T. There's nothing that surprises me. And that's the one thing that I had to learn really quick in this position, was you have to be thinking 6 to 8 months ahead of time. And you have to be prepared for every curveball. I have everything done at least 30 days ahead of time. Everything is, you have to be that way. Otherwise, you are stressing out the credentialers on the other side, which isn't good. And then the appointments could be, delayed or not approved by the meeting date and all of that. So it's really important that I keep on top of that stuff for the credentialers. So when they contact me, I'm usually right there. Here you go. Everything's here. What else do you need, and all that.
I wish everyone was like you. That would make my life and Christy's life a lot easier.
That's great. Communication and organization are obviously key, but so is the willingness to change. You can't be stuck in your ways. Isn't that right, Jody?
Wow, yeah. Change is always a good thing. And once you establish your organization system that you're using, whatever that is and whatever it works for you at the time, may change. Or maybe in our case, for instance, we became JUGGLE certified a couple of years ago, and that changes everything. So protocol changes, paperwork changes. So just be prepared for that. And again, that is also will make you have to think long term for things like that. But to be prepared for that and be okay with making changes and have your organization and system change.
Being stuck in a system that is not efficient, and you're not willing to change, it can only hurt you in this position. Constant reevaluation and improving processes. I think I've done that about 5 times since I took over this department. Learning what's important, what's not as important, what, as far as, how much time it takes to do things, having a system that you track and then just keep reevaluating. I constantly reevaluate, see how I can do it better, how I can organize it better. I'm in a constant analyzing mode, and I redo stuff all the time. And all it does is improve me, and improves my work product, and it improves Tex and I. So the longer that you're in a position, you learn that. You learn the more. I mean, I'm sure that all of you have been there in these positions a lot longer than I have. I'm sure that you guys have had, not just because of the computer age, but just your own systems, making things better. And of course, everything's always changing. I mean, we open and close locations. We have providers right and left going back and forth. I mean, there's things that happen all the time. So you have to be super flexible and willing to reevaluate what you're doing currently and how to make it more efficient so that you can run better. With me, I'm in my department by myself. And so I am treading water for the most part because there's so much to do, and I'm waiting to get another helper in here. But that's why I'm constantly evaluating, trying to time management and prioritizing and all that stuff. So I mean, you have to be willing to keep an open mind, accept help if if somebody else is there. Seek knowledge, just like this webinar. NAMS is a great resource for the legal stuff and getting the certifications, which I'm currently studying for. And so if you just go out and just network and meet people and find out what works for them, and then see if you can implement it, with us, with your system, it helps you so much if you do that.
Awesome. So in any workplace, having a team to support you is great, but a lot of times you're like a lone ranger taking on credentialing. Can you ladies expand on the importance of networking and how you use your connections to manage your day-to-day work life?
Networking is a really important piece when it comes to credentialing, making those relationships with your fellow credentialing coordinators, specialists, directors on both the payer enrollment side, the medical staff offices, the private practices, anywhere that you can make a connection with someone is really important. And it's not just on a job level. It's great if you can get a small personal rapport. I'm not talking about knowing the ins and outs of the entire life of someone, but just having a friendly relationship when you call and chat with someone. Hey, how's your day going? You know, that kind of thing. Because if you can develop a really good relationship with the people that you deal with, you'll be surprised that when you get in a pinch about something, if you really need the help for an answer to something, or if you're having difficulty getting that app to go through on the payer side and finding out why it's not going through and getting approved, or at the hospital, or if you're not getting a response, how many people have sent out letters for affiliations, and there's always that one person in an office that never responds to letters. But if you have a good relationship with another person in that same office, you can always call and say, hey, you know, I've sent 3 requests. This person isn't responding. Can you help me get this letter? I really need it. It's the only thing I need to complete my file. And that person is like, sure, no problem. And the next thing you know, in a half hour, you have that letter. It's because of those relationships that you've developed in networking.
Yeah.
I agree. Connections come in handy. I know that we had to, we opened our urgent care in a very short period of time, and I didn't have any information on how to credential a nurse practitioner. So I went back to my buds that I had worked with the hospital, and they helped me with a checklist and things I needed to do to follow through on that. So I agree. It's always great to have contacts.
One of the things that I faced when I took over this position is the person before me ended up burning bridges instead of building bridges. So I spent the better part of a year rebuilding those bridges. And now that I have done that, and then I'm still doing it, obviously, I'm very personable with my contacts, because they help me and I help them, and I always answer my phone, and I'm always quick on an email, and I'm constantly in contact with everybody about what's going on, if there's an issue, whatever it is. But you have to have your contacts, and you have to have your bridges built, because if you don't, you're going to struggle every minute of the day. The person that was before me struggled to get anything done because she burned so many bridges that they did not want to help her. And, you know, they made things delay and everything. And so when I took over, I had to really just fall on their mercy and say, I am not that person. I am going to be here. I'm constant contact, whatever you do. And I've proven myself. And so I have very big bridges that I've built with everybody. And I'm very proud of those relationships. And they can call me, and they're very personal with me as well. And they know that they can get whatever they need from me, you know, if it has to do with the provider, obviously, with credentialing. So it's super, super important.
It's funny that you should mention that about burning the bridges, because it's so true. Of course, we're all professionals here, and we all want to sit here and say, no, I would never do that. I'm always a professional in my job. I always get everything done in a timely manner. And it's, you know, we handle ourselves in the utmost highest respect. But let's just be honest, if somebody really ticks you off and doesn't treat you with respect in your job, how likely are you to want to do their stuff when it comes across your desk? And I've seen that far too many times in so many situations where people aren't getting letters returned, they're not getting responses, they're not getting things completed because they have ticked the wrong person off. And that person just, whenever they see something come across their desk from, you know, negative Nancy, sorry if anyone's named Nancy out there, I'm not trying to, you know, put your name down, but, or Debbie Downer, here I'll throw someone else in there in the mix, but they see that name come across their desk and they're like, nope, sorry, not today, and that letter immediately goes to the bottom of the pile. And so it just delays things further. So being nice, being kind, being respectful, it goes so far in this business. It really, really does. Not only that, advancing your career. If you are good at what you do, you have that personality, people remember that. And when that position comes open, they're going to remember, hey, so and so did a fantastic job. Let's reach out to them. They might be willing. And you never know where it can advance you and take you in your career.
And another point to networking, Christy and I had this recently. We actually have a client going under a JCO audit today, of all days, and we knew it was coming. So, what was it, a month or two ago, Christy actually reached out to a former colleague who had just gone through the same audit and just said, hey, you know, what are some things that came up while you were going through that? And we were able to go through our clients' files and make sure that those things weren't in our files. Our files were good. We did a mock audit. Everything went well. But because Christy had that good relationship with a former coworker, it wasn't, you know, she didn't burn that bridge when she left that job. She kept that relationship open, and it benefited us in our company in having somebody that we could say, hey, you know, what did you see? What happened? And then we were able to share that information. So the networking is just it's so valuable.
Thank you, Terry Lynn. You know, one thing I suspected and now can confirm from most of the panelists is that in this role, you have to have an eye towards perfection. I mean, you're all interested in maintaining as much control as you can as type A personalities or type C personalities, depending on the resource one might refer to. Ladies, you must have a short list of important tips that you swear by. Here in our second topic, tips of the trade, please share any tips, tricks, advice, anecdotes, anything that would be helpful to your colleagues. Christy, let's go to you now. I know you handle multiple clients. What's your perspective? Is that a one-size-fits-all proposition, or is it never-endingly unique?
So when dealing with multiple clients, you're going to have to be willing to remember that not everyone is going to fit into a cookie cutter pattern. As much as we are type A personalities, and this, I know for me personally, one thing that I've had to adjust with in dealing with multiple clients is I came from a hospital setting. So we were Joint Commission standard. In our hospital, we did it this way, A, B, C, D, E, F. And so then coming into a CVO setting, and I have a hospital that I deal with, I have an IPA that I deal with, I have a telemed group that I deal with, and then I have another small rural hospital I deal with, and then I also have a surgery, outpatient surgery clinic that I deal with. So you can see I have five very different clients that I deal with on a daily basis, and each one follow different guidelines, different standards. And so none of them fit into the little cookie cutter pattern that I was used to. So you have to be willing to, one, adjust your daily processes and understand that, okay, this group follows these guidelines and I have to know these standards. This group follows these guidelines, I need to know these standards. And you have to be willing to adjust, change, and follow what each client does. You can't mix and match. You can't want to try and put them all in the same little nice, ducks in a row as much as you want to. Some things can cross over, and of course, credentialing is credentialing. You know, verify the same information. You get the same verification letters for the most part. But as far as what each facility wants and each group, they are going to have their way of doing things. So you've got to be willing to listen to your clients, and sometimes you have to be willing to just say, okay, that's how they want to do it, And that's what we're going to do. Be willing to offer suggestions, be willing to offer the knowledge you have because you are the trained person, the expert, but be willing to say, okay, this is the client, this is what they need, this is what we'll do. And you go forward and offer them the best services that you can.
Jody, your situation is completely different. You manage a busy emergency center here in Austin. Multiple offices, hundreds of providers, different license types, lots of documents and protocols. And that sounds like a lot of moving parts. How do you make everything work together so well?
Sure. Yeah, I think I mentioned before, we have 4 locations. We have a 5th ER opening soon. And then we also have an urgent care. And some of those have opened in time constraints that we didn't have a lot of control over, because maybe it was an existing ER that had financial problems and it was in a restructuring type scenario. And so a lot of times we can't do anything for a period of time, and then it's hair on fire. So I used to be involved also with the scheduling of the doctors, and I'm also involved with setting up the admissions department for all of those locations as well. So the credentialing gets crunched into a small little compact area. I think it's very interesting. We have so many different aspects of credentialing with different size practices, different and credentialing experts. So I think it's really great to hear all this. I could talk to these ladies for hours, but yes, and so oftentimes, and I'm lucky in that our committee, our credentialing committee, is our partners, and I work with them every day. So I don't have to wait around for their quarterly credentialing meeting or monthly or whatever. I can text them and go, hey, docs, I've got some new charts. Can we look at them together? And then we get that done. So that helps me be able to do what I do with my hair on fire when we open a new position, new location. So, and again, it's also dealing with sometimes different kinds of providers. Maybe it's a nurse practitioner. We've recently done that, and I didn't have a protocol for that. And when they open up so quickly, you want to make sure, first of all, you're working well with the scheduler so that she knows that Dr. Smith is not ready yet. We didn't get all of his information in. He's not gone through credentialing. He's not been accepted yet. And so please don't put him for a 24 for tomorrow, because we can't do that. So there are a lot of moving parts the way we do it because of the way we're set up. But it's good that I have experience in all of those areas, so I know to let the scheduler know where we stand with the credentialing. And I've got to make sure that we're up to date on everything. And of course, that's something that I use a system for, your system. Thank you very much for helping me with that, to stay on top of everything that's about to expire. So everything is up to date. And so yes, opening a new location, and if you're opening more than one location at once, that can be challenging as well. So that's how I've handled it, is keeping very organized. And talking about keeping relationships, I think working with the new doctors that you're credentialing and having good relationships with them from the get-go is essential, because you'll get good response from them. They'll get things to you in a timely manner. They'll get things to you that are complete. And so it's always important to have those good relationships so that when you can move forward when you're under a time crunch like that.
Shelley, I've learned that it's not uncommon for people in credentialing to be, for lack of a more graceful way to say it, thrown into the role and forced to figure it out. Was that the case with you, and how did you cope with that?
Yeah, so I inherited the position, and I talked a little bit about, having to rebuild relationships with, payers and insurance and credentialing companies, things like that. But from an administrative point of view, there were 3 people prior to me who never cleaned up the files from the one before. So I had incomplete paper files. I had excessive electronic files that were a mess. I had to figure out what I needed to keep, what I needed to get rid of. Like, for instance, folders, electronic folders full of just fax covers from 2005. I mean, it was like sifting through a haystack, basically, of just garbage. And I had to figure it out, get the system going. I hadn't even had my system going. This was just me cleaning up, trying to figure out what I needed, and learning on the job in the meantime too. So, I had to do that, and then I had to go through everybody's old emails for contacts, and I kind of, it was an abrupt departure for the person before me, so there wasn't a lot of prep time for anything at all. So I had to learn trial by fire, basically, and I had to figure out fast everything that I needed to know, and like I said, knowledge is the key, and building those relationships with the providers, so they can trust you, because that's the biggest thing about this job on my side, is that I'm being trusted with basically their livelihood, and I hold all the keys to all of their credentialing, and I handle all of that stuff for them, and I have a very good working relationship with them, and they trust me to do anything that needs to be done, in a timely manner, obviously, and again, with those bridges that I had to rebuild with the payers and facilities, it's just it's invaluable for that, definitely. So if you've been thrown into a chaotic situation like I have been, just keep swimming, but also get your handle on it and make it your own and own it, because it's going to be your life for the next 30 years. At least that's what it seems like.
They say the only thing that remains the same is change, and with change can come surprise. So I think I know the answer to the first part of this question. Terry Lynn, do you find yourself getting a lot of surprises on a daily basis? What kind of surprises do you have? And finally, how do you deal with them?
That happens daily around here. We knew that our client was going to have an audit today, but we didn't know it was going to be today until a few days ago. So we had to be prepared. We had to be organized. We had to be proactive. A big thing for us is, some of our facilities contract with a radiology group or an anesthesia group. If that group drops their contract, then all of a sudden we are in a rush and in a panic trying to get the new group credentialed so that the services can continue. So sometimes it's just, we're not, we didn't expect to have 10 or 15 rush files on our desk this week, but it very well could happen at any point in time. Doing a final review of a file, and you find something that all of a sudden you think, oh, I need to look at this closer. You don't know if it's going to be a quick answer or if it's something that's going to take additional research, additional verifications. And if that file's set to go to committee in 2 days, you're now in a time crunch. So, again, we try to be prepared and be proactive in having those files ready a little early, but you can't do it too early, or your signatures are going to expire and your verifications are going to not be in the time frame they need to be in. So those are things that we run into on a daily basis. It's just not knowing what our day may hold. We try not to hold things off until the last minute for that reason, because you don't know. With a variety of clients, anything can happen at any point in time. So again, being organized, being prepared, and being proactive are the three things that we really push for, so that those things don't happen, or if they do, that we can handle them, because they're going to happen no matter what.
Communicating with providers, I have to imagine, can be a tedious job. I know that they're supremely busy. I've heard horror stories, and I've heard some are downright Johnny on the spot in terms of responsiveness. How do you communicate with providers, panelists? What works best for you?
So communicating with providers, I think we're in a little bit of a different position, because we have sometimes the facility managers or the clinic managers, and that's who we need to go through. And then sometimes we have to go to the providers directly. So knowing who to communicate with is very, very big for us. We've got to know where that information is going to be best collected from. And then, some providers want to email or a text. They don't want you to call them. They don't have time for you. So you've got to know not only who to contact, but how you're going to best get a response from that provider. And so having a system in place that can help with that is always super helpful. And then just, again, knowing how to communicate is probably big for us.
And I think I'd like to echo Terry Lynn on that and say that a lot of times you have to know when to kind of sit back and let the provider respond, but then you also have to know when to push, because sometimes you'll have providers that respond the next day or within 30 minutes of you sending a request, and then sometimes you don't. So in having those processes in place, you also kind of have to know, okay, this provider is not responding, so a fax, an email, a text, this isn't working. We need to make a phone call. We need to push a little more, being mindful of those deadlines that you're working at with, whatnot, because sometimes a hospital, a client, a clinic might come in with a more urgent request also. And those guidelines that we have in place sometimes have to just go right out of the window. You have to be willing to adjust and jump through hoops and go, okay, we've got to call these guys right away and move heaven and earth and get what we need. And so you definitely have to follow those processes, but then you have to be willing to adjust and change for those unforeseen circumstances. But you also have to know when to push and put on a little bit of the heat for the provider and say, okay, you're not responding. You need to get with it, or your privileges could be dropped. I mean, sometimes they think, oh, nothing's going to happen. I'll just send it when I want to. And they don't realize that there could be consequences to the fact that you're not sending your current license. You're not sending your current certificate of insurance. You're not sending your current DEA. This facility is going to drop your privileges if you don't send this information. You need to send it today. And so you kind of have to know when to push.
So I kind of follow a structure when trying to talk with the providers. I usually do 2 emails, then I do 1 phone call, and then I sit on their desk. And if that doesn't work, then I'm getting my administrator involved for a reality check. So, I'm usually not hounding them. I'm usually giving them their space. But when it's something that's really important or that has a deadline that they're just not responding to, then, I do implement those strategies for myself. But I don't usually have too many problems with that. And again, I don't usually track them down for much except for signatures, because I do all the renewals and stuff. So really, I don't have too many issues with it, which is fortunate. But, the only thing I think that I have issues with is with getting the CMEs in so that we can do the licensing and all that. And so they forget that they didn't do all their CMEs yet or whatever it is. And then my administrator will help me out and give them a reality check that if they don't get it in, then they don't get to practice. So, there's definitely giving them room and giving them the option to respond, and then also lighten the fire. I agree with completely.
Well, I have the wonderful job of being able to work on site with all of our guys. We're 50 plus ER doctors, and I work on all 4 sites, and I'm around. And now some of the doctors may work just 1 12-hour shift a month, and some may work 14 12-hour shifts a month. So I see them on a regular basis, and I also onboard them, and like I said, I used to schedule them as well. So we kind of have a different type of relationship because I'm here every day and in their midst. And they don't have offices here except for our partners. So if I'm I usually text them. We're very casual. I will just text them and say, hey, doc, I need a new DEA, or hey, doc, you need to sign this form, or whatever. So we kind of have that sort of relationship with them. I do. It's different, but I've been working on this for about 6 years, so it just kind of evolved into that. And if I have any issues at all, maybe there's a doctor who, and we have very few, our guys really are just the best. But if we have anything, I'll copy one of the partner doctors, and on an email, and they'll know that that doctor's not getting back with me in a timely manner on things that I need to keep them current. But texting is a big thing for me. I have one doctor who doesn't text, so I know to email her, but she immediately responds to me. And if not that, she's one of the ones that works 14 to 16 12s every month, so I know where to find her. And I also have access to the schedule. I'm going down right now as soon as we finish and work face-to-face with the doctor I need to get some information from. So that is the benefit that I have, the way we're set up. I think it's so fun to watch all these different scenarios. But that's what I do. And it's always maintaining that relationship, but always, again, and I think one of the ladies mentioned, I mean, you do have to be firm. Because they do think, oh, it's just my license. I've got it at home. I'll get it to you, kind of thing. And no, it's important. It's for us. And I did have, I've had doctors who don't understand what it is that we do and how important it is, and that the state comes in and evaluates all of these and make sure everything is up to date. So you have to let them know why. And even I have a letter from the state that tells specific things. If I need to pull that out, I will. But you have to be firm, and they have to have a lot of respect for you, but also know that they can count on you at the same time. So it is, again, developing those relationships.
There's stress in any job, and it seems to me like there might be lots of it where credentialing is concerned. You've got compliance requirements, timelines, personalities. How do you tame the beast?
Mine is support. So for me, it is to support, my team, to support my staff and make sure that they have the resources they need, because when they're stressed, I'm stressed. I'm worried about something getting done. So for me, that's probably one of my key things in addition to organization is supporting each other. I support Christy, but in turn, she supports me when I need it. So on a personal level as well as on a professional level, that support is definitely a key component.
I would say also I would definitely echo support. I think that supporting one another is a huge thing, but I would also say trying to, as much as possible, to separate your personal life from the job. Terry mentioned earlier in the call that many times we are at home and we are thinking about, oh, I need to do this, or you saw this on the news and you think, oh my goodness, have we been doing this for our files? And really and truly, it can quickly overtake you and constantly consume your thoughts when you're thinking about things, especially if you have a meeting coming up or a problem file with a provider, and it can really, really consume you. So you've got to find a way to be able to separate the two and find a way to leave work at work. And when you walk away, say, okay, this is staying here. I am walking away and I am now Christy, not credentialing coordinator, but Christy, wife and mom, away from here. Because if I don't do that, no one wins in that situation. My family doesn't win, I don't win, and you really have to learn how to separate yourself from the job, because if you don't, it will overtake you.
Yeah, so my viewpoint is, unfortunately, this job does attract a certain personality, like we've talked about, and usually that person is never turning off. In fact, I actually do a lot of reevaluating my system and stuff after hours, and that's because I have a time where no one's bothering me and I can actually think about stuff. But when I do need to de-stress, one of the things that I do is before I leave my office, I make sure that my inbox is empty, because if I don't, I'll be sitting at home going, what is that? But I do I do veg out in front of my computer and at home, and I play a game usually with my kids, or I play a video game that's on my PC, and it basically just zens me out, and it's the best way of relaxing for me personally. Getting the frustration out and stuff like that, having that network ability and support team, it would be great. And I wish I had that here personally with in my company, but since I'm the only credentialing person here, nobody really knows what I'm talking about, even though I do vent. But, my husband and my sons have definitely learned a lot about credentialing over the last 2 years, because I've been telling them all the different pitfalls and accomplishments and stuff like that. So, de-stressing with talking and letting out your frustration is definitely key. And then finding your Zen place after hours. And like she said, finding you're not just a credentialing coordinator, you're a mom, you're a wife, and you're a person. So you just have to have that release.
Well, I can really relate to what Shelley was saying, because everybody has their own way to decompress, and mine is I'm always connected. We're an ER open 24/7, 365. It never shuts down for us, and so you come to an acceptance of that, and you learn how to decompress within the chaos even. So my phone is always on me, it's like an appendage. I'm always attached, but you have to know, and for all of us, I'll guarantee you that if we did a personality test on all of us on this conversation, we are all a very detail-oriented group. We're the kind who would fret over being off a penny on our reconciliation of our bank account if we weren't electronically taken care of. We take everything seriously, and we want to do our best, and we expect everybody around us to do their best. So for us, it's really important, but when you're overwhelmed during the day, you stay. For me, because we're 24/7, I stay as long as it takes till I get to the point where I feel comfortable leaving. It never goes away. It will be there tomorrow, but there is that point where you feel like, okay, now, tonight, I can go home and I can relax and I won't think about it until tomorrow morning, because it will still be there. So, and yes, venting to other people is very important. I am also the only one who does this job where I am, in addition to wearing other hats. So, venting to other people and having good friends that you can do that with, or people at work that you can do that with in a professional way. And having a good group of friends that you can go out with and not think about work, being completely separated as much as you possibly can. My friends are accustomed to my getting calls or texts in the middle of dinner or whatever, but you learn how to use your time, your off time, your downtime wisely, and to decompress. I make sure, for me, it's physical fitness too. That makes me feel in control, and so and that's a big thing for personality types like ours. We like to be in control, so that's why we get kind of stressed out when things get chaotic.
Ladies, you've given us some great insight on how you specifically handle credentialing. We've gotten a lot of varied perspective on process, procedures, different approaches, philosophies, and so much more. But let's switch gears for a minute and let's talk about the tools of the trade. What do you use and why?
Like I said before, like when I inherited this job, I inherited about 50 spreadsheets and other ways and access and all these duplicate, ridiculous ways of tracking information. And I was just like, this isn't happening. This isn't working. I need to find something. So when I was searching for some kind of program software, a project management software, things like that, I came across Money.com. Money.com is a completely customizable tracking project management software that you can use for collaborating with teams, everything like that, and it's great. But it has really saved me. In fact, I saw it on a Monday. I saw the software on a Monday. I did the trial till Tuesday. On Wednesday, we bought it. So that was pretty much it. I was sold immediately. So it was great. But I really do use that, but not just for credentialing, because medical staff services is not just credentialing. Like, like Jody said, there's many, many hats that we wear. So because I have so many projects and so many things going on, Monday.com lets me do that. Now, the one thing that I do love, I use two processes. I use Monday.com, but then I also use the ReadyDoc software, and the ReadyDoc software allows me to have the security that I need to keep the expirables and credentialing documents for my doctors, and it also allows the tracking with notifications. So those are the two tools that I use to keep my sanity and to keep my doctors working and my business up. So it has been very successful so far, and both of these tools that I'm using are still improving, which is great. Both companies do great suggestions from the users and take everything into account, and I feel like they both have great customer service. So they help me just as much as I try to help them, anything that they're doing, and give feedback. So I would definitely suggest finding that system and getting that tool that you can use that will be customizable to your way of doing things, and then just keep that evolution going on reevaluating and organizing.
So one of the things that we do, not only in tracking, we put the expiration dates in our system. We decide how far out we're going to request those items. Some of our providers and offices get upset with us because we'll send a notice out 90 days ahead that, hey, this is going to be expiring. We just want it on their radar. We want the office or the provider to be aware of the fact that it's coming. And I think sometimes they're like, we know it's upcoming, but it's not due right now. We realize that, but not everybody is that organized. And, that's just something we do from our end, is we try to help remind our clients and our providers, this is upcoming. The DEA, the license, those are things we can go online and pull. We don't have to bother the providers for those, but that certificate of insurance and the CME, those things have to come from our clients directly. So staying on top of those, knowing how far out in advance they can request those, and then making sure that it's not 2 days before a license is due to renew and they haven't even started the process, because then we know there's going to be a lapse. So those are just some of the things that we do, putting it in the software, making sure that those dates are accurate. We do audit checks on our end from the management standpoint to make sure those dates, it's part of human error. I wish there was some software out there that would scan the date and make sure that date was always correct. But you're going to have error when you've got people keying information. So having those audits in place to not only make sure you're tracking it, but that you're tracking it appropriately.
Well, I want to know how many of us were using Excel spreadsheets and pulling our hair out. So, yeah, I mean, I love working with systems that will remind me and the doctor when things are due. And so that helps me a lot. And to be able to go in and see exclamation marks by things that are expired so that it makes it just easier for me to take care of is huge. It's so much better than Excel spreadsheet.
I think it's important to have all of your provider information in one place so that you're not scrambling and searching for information. I think everyone would agree on that, whether it be when an audit comes up or when the state walks in and you're having to pull a file or whatever. It's great to have everything in a uniform fashion. One thing that Terry and I recently discovered is we inherited some files for some clients, and the information was not kept in a uniform fashion. And so the thing that we've discovered is just trying to track and locate documents, and it's been an absolute nightmare. And so one thing that I try to do is, as much as possible, even though all my clients are different, is currently we use SharePoint, but all the files are set up, and we try to make sure that for each client the files are set up in somewhat of a similar fashion. And that the provider's files are set up in somewhat of a similar fashion. So that if I'm out sick or off on vacation or whatever, whoever comes in, they know what they're looking at when they look at my files. The thing that I'm most excited about is that we are in the process of switching all of our clients and providers over to ReadyDoc. So that information will all be in one place for ReadyDoc, and we have been in the process, and we've already used ReadyDoc for some of the documents and things, and getting some of the clients set up. And one thing that I really like is that the invitations can be sent out to the providers to allow the providers to submit documents when they're submitting things. So, it kind of takes the middleman out of things, because not only am I allowed to see things in real time, but our clients are allowed to see things in real time, as well as the provider, whoever has the invitation and the access to that information in ReadyDoc. Everything can be seen in real time. Also, it's super secure. And if any document is updated, changed, tampered with, anything, it saves a new version. So you know that that documentation has been changed in some way, shape, or form. So I love that aspect of it, because you don't have to worry about the authentication of it. You know that that's the authentic document that you've received. And so I think it's just the main thing is super important just to have everything in one place and in a uniform fashion, so that whoever is looking at those files, you're not guessing and wasting time searching and trying to figure out what you're looking at and find what you're looking for.
Credentialing is not a sprint, it's a marathon. And for time management purposes, having those documents in one place pretty much is the most efficient way of saving your time, because your time is the one thing that you can't get back, and it's the one thing that's most demanded of you on every level in this position. Having the time to, get searching for documents or searching for things that you need is waste. You need to get that stuff in one area, get your system set up so that you are only going in one place to get that information, to see those tracking, expirables, and saving your time. It's worth it to keep your system efficient. And the best way to do that is to get all of your credentialing information in one spot, so that there is no need to search. There's no reason to do that. You'll drive yourself crazy. Having that organization inside of ReadyDoc is invaluable to me. Along with the security. I mean, it's great. So it is a requirement of this job, is to have everything in one place, in my opinion.
I agree. We have 5 locations, and in the day before ReadyDoc, I had paper files at all 5 locations, because I had to, because if the state walks in to one location, the credentialing items have to be there. Now I have them electronically at my fingertips and all in one place and organized with reminders of when to be updated. So it's essential. Those were crazy days.
Wow, it sounds like it. So the digital trend has really helped keep things organized and on top of important documents. You also mentioned it helped with security. How so?
Security in my area is in my position. We don't deal with the PHA part too much, because the credentialing stuff that I deal with goes directly to facilities and things like that. So I'm not too concerned with that stuff. But security of the documents themselves is so important. I basically have all of my providers' life in my hands, in my office, like everything. So I have to keep their information as secure as possible, so that there's limited access to those things. Security documents is the most important spot for the provider themselves in my position. So for facilities, on your side, you guys can talk about that. But as far as the provider side, and in my position specifically, because we work kind of different than most provider offices, because I handle everything, I take security very, very, very seriously. And having that secure environment with ReadyDoc is perfect, and there's no reason to have it anywhere else. You need to have that security.
Yeah, and I think, we've touched on it before, but paper files are something you see a lot of credentialers want to hold on to, but they are so dangerous. Anybody can walk in and grab them. Anybody can, it can just get lost in the shuffle of other paperwork, and all of a sudden there's a license or a social security card floating around. We personally, within our company, it's against company protocol to print anything. Document-wise, it's all electronic. The exception would be if we needed to send something to a facility. We work with all of our facilities to establish either a shared file or some password that we can protect all the documents with a similar password that only us in the facility know, so that we can pass files back and forth. That's something we do have to deal with. We're not inside the facility. So, we are collecting all of this information from the providers, and then we're getting it over to the facilities to review and to put in their files. So having a secure means to do that is just a necessity, and something I think the electronic age has definitely helped. And now you have to worry about, breaches in those electronic files and security. So making sure that you have those protocols in place, and that you're meeting, with us, we've got multiple clients and they each have security protocol that we have to adjust to. We've got to make sure that whatever we're doing on our end is also fits within their standards and their protocols. So just working with your clients, working with the facilities, working with the providers to keep that as secure as possible. And then, you've got providers out there that are very, very concerned about handing over this information. It's something that on our end we run into a lot. We're a third party. So they are wanting to know, why are they handing us all of this information, and what are we going to do with it, and how are we going to secure it and keep it from just out there wandering the universe. So it's something you've just got to be super vigilant about. I think in the past we've been a little lax, and we as an industry, emailing files back and forth, we think that's okay. And while that is a good form to share information, you've got to make sure if that social's on there, if that personal information, those background check forms that they fill out that has everything that they need, secure those, password protect those, even if you're just going to be emailing it to somebody else within your facility or company, making sure that you're sending that securely.
Another thing to think about security is not only do you have to think about it electronically, but where Terry was talking about the paper files is, someone that could walk in and grab the file and take off, and they've got all of the provider's information. A lot of people don't take into consideration natural disasters if they are still using just paper files. If, God forbid, a fire destroying a facility, then all your information's gone. Or look back to Hurricane Katrina in New Orleans and Louisiana. Tulane lost a lot of their documentation. I know that many times when I reached out to them to verify education for a facility or hospital privileges or whatnot, a lot of times now you get information back stating that all of those documents were destroyed in the hurricane, and you can't get that information. That information is gone. You can't verify those providers' education. You can't verify that history for that provider's work history and time. And so that's one thing that you have to think about, because when we're trying to verify and establish a timeline for these providers, because that's what meets our standards, is, and you're thinking about security, is if you have these files still in paper files because you think that's what's keeping you secure and keeping everything in check, because you're afraid to switch over to electronic because of those reasons, because of security, you're really hurting yourself, because if you lose that documentation, it's gone and you can't get it back. And so going to the electronic and making sure that you have those appropriate passwords in place really is setting you up for success and protecting you in the long run so that you don't have to worry about those documents being lost in fires or floods or hurricanes. You know, you think about the hurricane, I mean, with winds and water, how many of those documents were carried to another location that somebody else could have gotten their hands on that shouldn't have? So that's one thing to think about.